Stalin's iron grip on Soviet society exposed. In the depths of Siberia, where the biting cold could freeze the soul, a chilling aspect of human history unfolded. From the 1920s through to the 1950s, under the ironclad rule of Joseph Stalin, a system of labor camps known as gulags carved a harsh scar on the psyche of the Soviet Union. These camps, largely obscured from public scrutiny and misunderstood by the outside world, housed political prisoners, criminals, and millions of ordinary people whose only crime was falling afoul of Stalin's regime. But what were these gulags really like, and why were they originally built? How did they function, and how did their existence influence the course of Soviet and world history? The history of gulags before Stalin. The origins of the gulag system lie not with Joseph Stalin, but in the tumultuous years following the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917. The new Soviet government, led by Vladimir Lenin, grappled with consolidating their rule and constructing a new society out of the ashes of the Russian Empire. In addition, they were struggling to manage the civil war against the White forces. It was during this time, in 1919, that the first concentration camps began to emerge in Russia. The term Gulag is an acronym for Glavno Upravlenie, or Main Camp Administration, the government agency responsible for Soviet forced labor camp systems. It wasn't formally established until 1930, but in the years after the revolution, Lenin's government set up a number of forced labor camps for a variety of purposes, including managing political dissent and economic hardship. For instance, the Solovki prison camp, initially a monastery, became a prototype for the later Gulag system. During the 1920s, these camps expanded under Lenin's new economic policy, an attempt to reinvigorate the Soviet economy by incorporating aspects of capitalism. The camps served as a place to send those convicted of crimes. However, they were also seen as a method of re-educating counter-revolutionaries and reintegrating them into the socialist system. Stalin's rise to power and growing paranoia. Joseph Stalin rose to power following the death of Vladimir Lenin in 1924, although it wasn't until the late 1920s that he had consolidated enough power to take full control of the Soviet Union. As the new General Secretary of the Communist Party, Stalin began to enact sweeping changes in Soviet society and economy. Stalin's vision for the Soviet Union was one of rapid industrialization and collectivization. He believed that the Soviet Union needed to modernize quickly to survive in a hostile world surrounded by capitalist powers. His first 5-year plan, which was launched in 1928, aimed at transforming the largely agrarian society into an industrial powerhouse. This process was extremely disruptive. It led to widespread upheaval, resistance, and famine, particularly during the collectivization of agriculture. Simultaneously, Stalin began to consolidate his rule through the systematic purging of perceived or potential enemies. His paranoia, coupled with a desire for complete control, led to a political climate characterized by widespread suspicion and fear. Stalin expanded the use of political repression tools, including censorship, surveillance, propaganda, show trials, executions, and, importantly, forced labor camps, or gulags. Stalin believed that re-education through labor could transform counter-revolutionary into useful members of Soviet society. So in 1929, the government introduced the concept of corrective labor as a penalty. This was essentially a sentence to forced labor by another name. How did Stalin transform the Gulag system? While early labor camps under Lenin were relatively sporadic and loosely organized, under Stalin, these camps proliferated and became more formally structured. The centralization of the camp system took place in 1930 with the establishment of the Gulag Agency under the Soviet secret police, the NKVD. Stalin specifically used gulags as an instrument for achieving several strategic objectives. Firstly, they served as a means to suppress and isolate political enemies of the state, and any individual who could potentially threaten his authoritarian regime. In essence, the gulags were a clear manifestation of Stalin's Great Terror policy, which sought to cleanse the Soviet society of perceived internal enemies. Moreover, the gulags were crucial to Stalin's forced industrialization and collectivization programs. The camps could house and control large groups of people, forcing them to work in harsh conditions while still keeping them within the bounds of Soviet territory. The prisoners were used as a ready source of cheap labor, contributing to various infrastructure projects like